Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime. We come together on this podcast and we discuss it like we're a book club that doesn't like to read. And so we have watched an anime from this past 2 weeks, and we are here to discuss it. It is called Talentless. But before we get to it, I'm going to introduce my co-host. And first off, we have the L to my light Yagami, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Been crazy busy this week with school projects. They're having me finally put together a portfolio where I got to take all the crappy little games that I've made throughout the last couple of years and like find the best camera angles and try to make them presentable. So it's been keeping me busy.
Cool. We also have the mellow to my light Yagami, Jason. As someone who's seen Death Note, it's very funny to me.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it is. You suck. Anyways, doing all right. Man, just been playing the crap out of Valheim. I decided to do a hardcore version where if I die, I delete my character and world. And
Yes.
So far, I've
the
made
true
it.
Gaming.
I've got all the gear. I've got all the stuff, and I'm ready to go face the last boss, or at least the last boss that's currently released. And so we'll see how that goes. The other game I've been actually having a lot of fun with is, Deep Rock, which is a
Deep Rock
4-player. Huh?
Is that the Viking one, Deep Rock Galactic?
Yeah. Well, they're dwarves.
Yeah.
And so you get sent in a spaceship to an asteroid, and then you shoot bugs and mine minerals and have to try and get out. It's actually a blast.
Sweet.
Nice. And what I love most about that is you gave no shout outs to anyone who definitely doesn't deserve a shout out. And my name is Troy.
Oh no.
And I took a break from watching my 100 movies to watch 2 brand new movies. One was Freaky with Vince Vaughn, and one was Tenet. Freaky is a horror movie where the killer and the final girl swap bodies, and it was really fun. You get to watch Vince Vaughn be a 16-year-old girl for most of the movie, and it was very funny, except for, so now the final girl has murderer strength, like, Michael Myers, and can't be hurt, while the killer now has final girl tenacity and never gives up and just keeps trying to kill people. And it was really fun. Very fun movie. Exactly what you're getting when you go into it. And Tenet, Christopher Nolan's new movie, probably the last big blockbuster that really came out in theaters, was awesome. I loved it. If I sit and think about it, it'll probably all fall apart. But I loved every second of it. The first half is just a standard James Bond movie that has a very weak plot, and then it gets to the second half, and it's like, ka-ching! Here's the payoff for all of that, and it's like, oh, everything that happened is so awesome, and I loved it. I was geeking out very hard for that movie. The sound mixing that everyone says is off is completely off. I had to watch it in subtitles. He loves that wah sound. You can't hear anyone talk. But it was a very fun movie.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a very long movie too. I remember when Tanya and I were watching it, it was hard to get through the first probably third, maybe not quite half. Just because, like you said, it feels like the plot's really weak. But yeah, the last 30 minutes to an hour just was amazing.
Right. Yeah, I felt the same thing. And in that first half, I'm like, this is like they're doing all the James Bond stuff, but they haven't told me really why. It's just like doing it and not really explaining anything. And I don't really know if I should care. Yeah. And then they get to the second half, and it informs that first half, and you really think like, oh yeah, now I know why. Okay. So yeah, very, very fun movie. Better than I thought it would be. I wasn't going in with high expectations either. All right, on to talk about Talentless Nana. And I'm going to do something very unusual for this podcast. before we even give our non-spoiler review, I'm giving a soft spoiler warning. This anime has a magic trick inside of it, and I don't want to ruin it. So we all have agreed that this is a good anime and worth watching if that's what you need to know. But if you want to know if it's for you, watch the first episode. If that hooks you, you'll know. If it doesn't, then you're fine. One episode is all you'll need to know if it's what you want. But the less you know going into it, the better. So we are going to review it, but even just in reviewing it will reveal things. It's just not possible. So soft spoiler warning here if you want to check it out for yourself.
And just to kind of pile on that, I would normally disagree with that philosophy. I think if something happens within the first 2 or 3 episodes, it's a main plot hook. Like that's just the story. But even the description doesn't give it away. So I tend to agree with this one because of how good that first episode was.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that spoiler warning given, we're going to go on to our review. I'll start with you, Jeremy. What did you think of Talentless Nana?
I absolutely loved it. At first when it starts out, you get this sort of cheesy poor man's ripoff of My Hero Academia. And I mean, even down to the point where one of the characters you're introduced to right away, he kind of takes on the role of protagonist for a little while, is he's a lot like Deku. Like he starts talking as if he has no power, when in reality he means, oh, my power is just not really that great. But he's just kind of disappearing in the back of the class, wishes maybe he could be something better. And you really get those vibes that it's trying to be My Hero Academia. And it is just this, school full of talented children, talents meaning superpowers, out in on an island somewhere. And then it quickly goes off in a totally different direction. And the vibes that at least it gave me from the direction that it goes are more of like a Watchmen, melodramatic, very cynical take on superheroes and just what their world would be like, and what effect they would have on the world. But it also kind of takes on a sort of not quite Lord of the Flies, if you're familiar with that book, where you have just how do kids survive on an island if there's no adults kind of thing. And that isn't exactly what happens here, but I mean, it's close. It shares some of the Venn diagram overlaps on that. And I absolutely love the way that the story develops, and the main character really has a strong arc. I could go on and on. I really liked this anime, and I think it's very much worth a watch.
Rest in peace, Piggy.
Yes.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
I echo a lot of what Jeremy said. I went to that first episode, and I had to watch the end of that episode at least twice, just so I could like grasp what was happening. Because at the end of the first episode, I thought it was a dream sequence. I was like, hold on, no, this is really happening. I walked into it blind, and I'm really glad I did, because it blew my expectations away. And each episode after that raised the bar with storytelling. The cat and mouse is just fantastic, and the dialogue is super good. Like, it comes off as a really cheery school experience for these talented kids, and in reality there's this backdrop of just horror. And I love it. So yeah, watch this anime if you haven't.
Yeah, I went into this knowing what everyone who's watched it now knows, but those who haven't don't. And so that did ruin that for me. But just having found out about it, I was like, that's such a good hook. I have to watch this anime. It's why I picked it. And it did not fail to deliver. I really like how they set up this anime. I think works conceptually more than anything. And when I was watching, I was like, I think this anime is the proof that you can ride on your concept alone. Now, I don't think I want to watch any further seasons. One season is good enough. I think the concept will eventually grow stale, and I don't even think there will be additional seasons. But one season of such a great concept, they really couldn't go wrong. I don't think the characters are super strong, but the dialogue is good. The animation is mediocre, but again, that concept is so fun. I loved watching this. Fun is the word that just kept coming to mind while I'm enjoying myself so much. And there was a reason I introduced Jeremy and Jason the way I did, the vibes I was getting from this anime. So highly recommended for me as well. And with that, we'll go on to the OP and ED. What'd you guys think of those?
I really liked them. I thought the music and the visuals of the OP was, they're not top tier to where I'm going to be putting it on a playlist or go back and watch it later. But I didn't skip it. I didn't feel a need to. I kept looking to see if I could spot clues of what was going on because of, the mystery surrounding this anime. And also it just, I love that Jekyll and Hyde style that it gave. It was, yeah. And the ending was super good too.
Yeah, I had to actually go back and watch it right before the podcast because I do have a bad habit of skipping OPs and endings, and I probably need to change that. But but the music was actually I liked it and it's memorable. The art was really good. I remember that from watching it. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about it than that.
It never really hooked me. I enjoy the visuals of both a lot, especially just kind of the implications of everything they show. And I did watch them all the times, but the music didn't it wasn't a banger to me. So good, but not great for me. And I don't think it's a bad habit to skip it. If it doesn't make you want to keep watching it, then that's on it, Jeremy. I don't think it's a bad habit at all.
I agree.
I know some people who watch anime are like, why do I have to watch a 1-minute intro every time I turn on an episode?
That's my thing. Yeah. I'm like, okay, altogether, that's going to be like 15 minutes. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but I can get a lot done in 15 minutes if I'm working in like Unity or something. So,
okay. So now let's go on to our actual spoiler warning. So, we've been dancing around it. A little bit had to be revealed just to even talk about the reviews. But now everything's coming out. Characters, plot, twists, and theories, because we don't know where this is going. So that's all coming at you as of now. Last chance to save yourself if you have not seen it. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on with the anime. And we start in our first episode with someone getting a text on their phone. It says, "Kill the enemies of humanity, save 100 million lives." I didn't actually know what number it was, but it was a big number. Save.
I think it was 1 million plus if it's the character I'm thinking of. Yeah.
And then we find out that this is a school full of superpowered children, very much and very on purpose. Think My Hero Academia. They are being trained to fight what I believe is supposed to be aliens that are like bug monster things that are destroying humanity. So they're there to train, even though they don't really do that much. And we meet a bunch of characters. There's a fired bully. Oh wow! There's a cool guy with ice powers. That's a little on the nose. There's a green-haired main protagonist who doesn't have talents and gets picked on, but maybe he's the most powerful of the group. Yeah. Jeremy, you said that it felt like a cheap My Hero Academia. That's what I went into this like.
Yes.
Oh, they were going for that knockoff look, and they nailed it. In this
They really did. I mean, there's even a guy who he reminded me of the Shock character from My Hero Academia because he's got the blonde hair, and they showed him right after going through like the ice and fire guys, and I'm like, okay, so they got the electrical guy too. Turns out that's not his power, but still, I mean, the fact that they did that sequence that way. They were intending that reference.
And we do meet a lot of these characters. And unlike most times when we talk about a podcast, we're not going to talk about any of these characters until we get to the end of this first episode. Yeah. Because there's no reason to yet. Nope. But we do meet this main protagonist named Nanoa. He is, like I said, a talentless boy in a class, and two new students come to the class. One is a tall, white-haired kid who refuses to reveal his power, which we learn probably means it's powerful. People with powerful powers like to keep it hidden. And his name is
Broody.
Kyoya. Yeah, he's very broody, very quiet, doesn't want to talk to anybody. Is looking for a BFF. And then we meet the next one, who is a very cute pink-haired girl named Nana. She has the ability to read minds, and she sits next to our main character and really picks up on that. He's dealing with low self-confidence, and she helps him stand up to his bullies. And the class has to pick a class leader, and the fire bully guy wants it. The cool ice guy wants it, and then she nominates our Nanoa. I'm messing up his name. It's Nanao. I don't know how that.
Yeah, see, that was one of the confusing points for me, is that his name was close enough to Nana, and he's talentless. And I'm like, wait, where are they going with this? Is he the talentless one? Because she's clearly got the talent of mind reading.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I was a little confused, even because I don't know. I didn't know everything, but I knew the twist, right? And so she's reading his mind, and I'm like, oh, she can do that.
Yeah. That doesn't sound talentless to me.
She mentions like, hey, you were recently taking care of a cat. You're thinking about a cat and stuff like that. He doesn't want to be nominated because they decide instead of a vote, they're gonna have a 3-way battle with their powers to decide who will be class leader. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. So he leaves. She goes after him. She asks for a tour of the island. They eat a meal together. He's like, he gets annoyed with her because she keeps pressing him and keeps reading his mind. And he's like, that's really annoying. She's like, I can't help it. Your inner thoughts are just kind of screaming out at me, and I overhear them. They go to a seaside cliff, and she almost gets pushed off, and we don't see what hits her or if it was an attack, but she almost falls off. He catches her and saves her. And then again, she's like, you really should be the class leader. And he gets mad and he leaves, and he forgets his father's watch that was given to him. And his father's where all his confidence problems come from. And she brings it back to him. And the next day, while the fire and ice guy are fighting, the ice guy wins, and the fire guy gets really pissed off and literally throws a giant fireball at the entire class. And then our main character jumps in front of it and blocks it, and he has the power to nullify powers. And guys, it is the most generic main character power ever. Everyone has a power but me, but I can turn off your power, so I am the most powerful. And it was like, oh wow, that is an eye roll and a half.
Yep. 1 million potential kills? Come on now.
Right.
Because of this, he gets voted as the class representative. He's the leader. They used to tease him about being the leader because he wanted to be the leader in the beginning, and now he is. And they go back to
his
this.
dad kept telling him to be the leader.
Yeah, always tell people you're the leader. Yep.
Comes from a wealthy family that wants to promote success.
Right. And they had hinted already in this episode that he wasn't actually talentless, but that he was hiding his power. They go back to the seaside cliff, and they have this really nice, sweet moment. And she reaches out and takes his hands, and he takes her hands. And then he's like, well, "Can you read my mind?" She throws him off the cliff, and she says, "I bet you're thinking, why is she going to kill me right now?"
Yes. Why is this cute girl killing me?
I was 100. So like right before this moment, she's like, it's a touching moment because she's like, you've turned off my power. It's finally silence in my head. I can't hear anything. It's lovely. And then, and so I'm like, this has to be a dream sequence. Like this anime has completely fooled me if this is reality. And then he falls to his death.
Yep.
This is our anime. It's Among Us, the anime.
Basically.
Yeah, like I said, I knew this going in, unfortunately, but it was the reason I picked it. This one moment, knowing this existed, was why I asked to watch this anime. It was in a Watch Mojo video about animes that switch their main protagonist, and they pointed out the scene. I'm like, that's so good. And then I was really careful not to mention it to anybody else. I spent a week waiting for you guys to start watching. Like, here it comes any second. They're gonna watch that first episode, and it's gonna be awesome.
Then it came.
Yep.
And then it came. So it was great. I love the twist. Even having it spoiled, it was still great to see. And she can't read minds.
Nope.
She had noticed cat scratches on his neck, which you can see in the anime. There are no fake clues. Like, everything is real. She's hyper observant, Sherlock Holmes style, and can read people based on that. And I love that too.
Yep.
Yeah, she's just a mentalist. She's just a regular human.
Yep. And on her phone, she gets text from the government telling her how deadly these kids are. And so we find out what we were told in the beginning is a lie. People started appearing in the world with superpowers, very similar to My Hero Academia, except for instead of like they just integrated into society, they mostly went berserk. It only takes a few when you're that powerful. So the government tried incorporating them into the government, very My Hero Academia style, but they ended up trying to overthrow the government, and that never worked out. So now they're at a point where kids that appear with talents are all sent to these islands, academies, so they can be isolated. And now they have sent an assassin in to integrate into them and then kill them one at a time.
Kill them. And they think of them as a nest.
And
it's so dehumanized. It's amazing.
When the government says enemies of humanity, they mean talented people. Mm-hmm. These are the true enemies of humanity. There are no aliens.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, there's a teacher on the island that's teaching them, and he always looks a little bit flustered, nervous, scared. And I was wondering, where are the adult heroes that are normally what you would expect to see teaching these students with talents, right? And they're not there. And that should have been a clue early on.
I will say, I still don't think we have the truth. I don't think what Nana's version of the truth is also fully the truth. I think there's something else going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Especially because you could literally just drop like a bomb on the island and be done with it. Why do you need to send someone in to do it one person at a time, slowly and methodically and quite twistedly?
Yeah, there's a few things that happen later that indicate that general civilian populations are not as hostile toward talented as this agency that's sending her in to assassinate them.
That's right. So yeah, that was our first episode. So now we can actually talk about a character, our actual main character, who is Nana. Again, she even, it's the same voice actress, but her voice is like so hyper cute, chirpy while she's in character, and then when she's the killer, I've got to murder these people. Like, she is deadly and mean. What do you guys think of Nana?
I both hate and love this character. Yes, when she's in character, she's just the tropey anime high school girl. Nothing particularly special about her, but it's like a reverse crime drama because I'm rooting for her not to win, because her win condition is to murder basically innocent people.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was, wow. It was such a weird feeling watching this character, because I loved watching her work, but I also hated it at the same time.
I love how you were describing her as, like, when she's in her Nana mode, as being sort of a tropey protagonist character. And I think it's absolutely true. And there was a mental exercise that I found myself doing as I was watching this, where I would watch what she would say in her evil form, right? And then I would imagine that I wasn't aware of that, and I was just watching the tropey Nana girl. And I was watching to see, like, could she convince me at this point? Like, not knowing that she's the murderer, not knowing what she's actually thinking, just watching the way they animate her, listening to the things she says and everything. Is it convincing? And it was very convincing. And the moments where she, like, she'd put her foot in her mouth or do something that might out her, or be in shock at something somebody else observed that, she couldn't believe that they would catch this thing, and the shock would register on her face and everything. They did such a good job in capturing all of those things in the Trophy Girl. And it was just, I loved it. I loved the complexity of that, knowing that there's like these two different characters. And even more than that, as we get to know her and we find out about her history, I totally agree with you, Jason, where it's like you have this sort of love-hate relationship with the character where obviously she is doing some horrible, horrible things, and you hate her for it. And yet at the same time, she goes through, I think, a really good arc of developing something that she's never had before, being confronted with these people that she's dehumanized. They've been dehumanized to her, and she's got to live among them as she's killing them, and she has to pretend to associate with them. So she is associating with them in order to pretend, which means that she gets within that proximity of realizing that they are not dehumanized. She starts to humanize them a little bit, and just how that starts to affect her intention and how she's performing her mission, and where she starts to doubt here and there, or even just wonder if maybe she made the right decision or would have done things differently. And that evolution of her character was just awesome. Really, really enjoyed it.
Before I talk about it, I want to mention one thing. The promotional artwork for this always features Nanoa, even though he's only in one episode. God, they committed to the sleight of hand, and like Jason pointed out, even Funimation's description, this is about superhero kids who fight aliens. No, it's not.
That was a lie.
Nana, she's super fun to watch, and this episode even really sets up her character dynamic, because we see her murder this innocent, what we think is our main protagonist, the hero character, but we also just saw another character almost kill his entire class out of a fit of rage.
Yes.
And so now you're like, is what she's doing okay? I mean, right. They kind of have a point, because their point is, hey, teenagers with superpowers is a dangerous mix. They are volatile. They don't know how to control themselves. And the teachers aren't teaching that. The teachers are like encouraging, hey, go fight and figure out who class president is. And so you're like, what they just said about these kids needing to die kind of has a ring of truth to it. But that guy she just murdered was like, wanted to be her boyfriend and was clearly a heroic, good person. I don't know how to feel right now. And then it's like, okay, hold on to that. We're going to just keep going. And that is a fantastic, fantastic character to have to latch onto. And the fact that this whole show is reverse murder detective work. Like, she has to figure out how to do the perfect murder, just like a detective has to figure out how a murder happened, which is why it gives me Death Note vibes. Except for she's not the one with the superpowers. They are.
I love that. You know that feeling you got of watching the main protagonist die? Yeah, put a pin in that, because we got to move on.
And we do in our next episode. No one knows that the boy has disappeared. He's not in class. They assume he's sick, but they're like, that's weird. We just made him leader and he didn't show up to class. And then they're out training, and someone asks her, hey, weren't you with him yesterday? And she's like, oh, let's not talk about that. She starts talking to the ice guy, and he starts showing off, and he freezes the lake. And one of the other students, who's up on a log trying to cross the lake, gets really mad and yells at him because he was afraid of falling in, and then everything froze. And then she takes that student out to lunch, and he is a time traveler. And so she prioritizes him as her next target. His name is Shibuwasa. And she's like, okay, well, that's one character who could figure out what I've done, because he could go back in time. And everyone thinks he freezes time, but she notices something he does early on. It's like, no, that's not what he does. So she goes out to lunch with him. She spills water on him on purpose, and then the water undoes. falling, and she's like,
On
"Oh,
spills.
yeah, he can time travel." So she starts talking with him about it, finding, and she's always like, "Hey, your power is so interesting. Tell me about it. Does it have weaknesses?" um, and then another character comes in, and it's Kyoya, who we had mentioned, and he's a little suspicious that one of the students has gone missing, and he starts asking questions, and he wants Shibawasa to use his time travel to actually investigate because of this suspicion. And he grabs Nana's hair and starts rubbing it because he likes to touch soft things while he's deducing and detectiving. But this is Kyoya. He is, I guess, our primary antagonist, the foil to Nana. What did you guys think of him?
They crafted his dialogue so well. Not only is he just like this near otaku without being too shut in, but like zero social skills, but just an incredible mind. And he's able to like he's basically the reflection of Nana when it comes to deducing a situation. Um, like, you know, the watch, we find out the watch is broken, or, you know, someone's got scratches in a particular spot, or they're missing something. Like, he's one of the only people that noticed that our main character from last episode is missing, and that she was the last one with him, or at least he assumes, though. And also, he seems to be the only one interested in finding out what happened to him, which is also, it shows that the rest of the class are just airhead teenagers, and he's actually interested in finding out what happened. And that's a theme that goes through, which makes him my favorite character, because he's so, like, his word dancing with Nana is so good. Like, the dialogue was written so well.
Yeah. And I love how they play back and forth where when they zoom in on Nana when she's thinking, and we actually get that evil Nana voice, it overtones everything with like a reddish color. And it does the opposite with him, where you get like this bluish color. And so it's really obvious that they are like the two sides of what's going on here. And I absolutely loved their interactions. There were a few things with Kyoya where I was trying to figure out what his real story is, because you know, when he comes in and we don't know what his power is and everything, he's clearly trying to hide things. But even like this thought about the fact that he's playing with her hair, and we find out that this is because he has a little sister, and he always played with his little sister's hair, right? It's very innocuous. And we also learn later that his little sister came to this island and disappeared last year. And so I'm like, wait a second, she's your little sister. Why didn't you come to the island first? Why are you here now? Like, I'm really confused about the timeline and just his general demeanor and ability to be kind of aloof, but at the same time, he makes lots of comments about like, oh, you know, I'm looking for friends too. I don't really know how to make friends. I don't know whether to believe him or not, you know, because part of that ability as a mentalist is not just to be able to deduce, but also to be able to mislead. And so I don't know how much of what he's saying is misleading. You guys mentioned when we were talking about the OP, I think it was in the pre-show, that like, I think it was you, Troy, that mentioned that there's a forest that's filled with like a few zombies hanging in it, but then you see Kyoya and he's walking over like a pile of corpses. And it's things like that where you're like, I don't know what's really going on with Kyoya, and so he really is fascinating, and it's a great Sherlock Moriarty back and forth between the two of them, but the series it needed him badly. He's just as important as the main character.
Yeah, because he's the perfect foil, and we'll talk about his actual power, but he's a chess piece you can't remove from the board, but he's always on your tail too. So you have to constantly, you have to save him for last, but you have to stay out of his sights and not let him catch you. And that's just this great. I mean, this really is a strategy mystery thing. Like, okay, I've got to move these pieces in the right order and make sure that I don't get caught. and he's that element that really drives that. My only thing, and he's my favorite character, especially that like, what's an F boy? I love his social ineptness. The only thing that drove me crazy about him is that he's always like, but what is the motive? And I'm like, what about just they want to kill things? That could be a motive that you literally think, hey, there's aliens trying to kill us, but you don't think could be the motive for these murders, that someone just wants to kill you. Okay.
Yeah.
And he uses that, like, if I could get the motive, that's the missing piece. And I'm like, it's really not. It's everything else you need. But
well, the problem is that Nana's so good at what she's doing. He's having a tough time gathering actual evidence, and I think that's one of the strong suits about his writing, is that he makes decisions based on hard evidence, and if he doesn't have it, he's willing to make speculations, but he never acts on those speculations. And I actually really like that about him.
I kind of wondered periodically where, he had enough evidence, and like you're saying, they were speculations, but they were so, like, there was so much data to back them up. I was impressed at the fact that he didn't just take it upon himself and not even worry about convincing anybody else and just go kill her. Like these supers, it just seems like the anime is cynical enough that I was kind of, when I saw her kill somebody, I was like, okay, so who else is going to kill people? And I was kind of wondering why he didn't do that. But I was also impressed with his desire to make sure that he didn't err there.
Justice.
Yes.
I am justice.
So after he leaves, Shibuwasa is like, I think we should investigate. And so he jumps back in time to the day before, and he's like, okay, he was with you, and he's like, I was following you. And they go to the next location, to the dorms. He jumps back in time again, and you can tell every time he comes back, he's winded, he's tired. It obviously takes a lot of exertion to do this. And she's like, but he hasn't caught me yet. He's clearly going back in time. He's clearly seeing me with him and following the events of what happened yesterday, but he hasn't figured it out yet. Why? And so she asks him, and he's like, you keep making eye contact with me in the past. And if someone in the past makes eye contact with me, it sends me back to the present. And you keep catching me. So they keep doing this and jumping back and forth. And he's like, okay, I followed you to A to B, and I followed you to B to C, until they eventually get to the point where she's holding hands. He's like, and then right at that moment, you saw me, and but it looks like you guys were fine, and you obviously, a tender moment. So I don't know what's going on, but I'm calling it for the day. So he leaves. That night, she goes and gets a shovel, and then we see her run up.
Why.
Yep, we don't know why. She runs up to his dorm. Is like, I didn't want to tell you what actually happened, but we actually were attacked by an enemy of humanity. It was in the woods. He told her he has a 24-hour window to go back, and she's like, you're about to exit the window, so I gotta get you there now. So they run into the woods, and she's like, it was right here. We were attacked by an enemy, and the boy was attacked. He's like, all right, I'll go. And he disappears, and he doesn't come back. And then she reveals underneath the ground, they're actually on the lake, and she just dug dirt out to the lake, onto the frozen lake from the training exercise. And this boy can't swim, so when he jumped back 24 hours, he was just in the lake
before the lake was frozen.
And now the lake is frozen, and his body's encased in ice, and he's dead in the past. So she's got her second kill. This one, I figured out a lot of mysteries here, but this one I was like, oh, the Chekhov gun of the frozen lake just went right by me. I was just like, oh, that's a funny little interesting thing. And I was like, nope, they set it up perfectly, and I didn't notice. I was so mad at myself.
Yep.
Well, even in the very beginning of the episode, he screams at the guy on the log, hey, I can't swim.
I can't swim.
Yep. Yes. Again, the Talentless does a great job of setting up their clues and stuff, which is, I did solve some mysteries because they did such a good job of it. But I was, this one I missed. And
you were so happy with one of the last ones.
Yeah, I was. My daughter was very upset with me because my daughter has actually seen this whole thing and then watched it with me to see my reaction. And when I called it, she was upset. All right. The next episode 3. we see Kyoya back on the cliffside, and he sees something reflecting in the water, and we see him just jump off the cliff and into the water, and then later he's got seaweed in his hair.
For a long
And-
time.
Yeah, like half the episode.
Like
And-
no one tells him.
And this scene, that scene that happens after, is a great example of how the observational powers of Nana and Kyoya are equal. Because the ice guy comes up to Nana and he's like, "Read my mind, what I'm thinking about you." And she's like, "You're thinking about your girlfriend." And then Kyoya walks in and he's like, "How do you know I have a girlfriend?" She's like, "Read your mind." And Kyoya goes, "Well, she also could have noticed that half of you is wet and the other half is not, as well as that girl over there who's also half wet, as if two people who shared an umbrella in this rainstorm were standing side by side." And she's like, "Oh, that Kyoya." So she starts following him around, sees that he goes out to like an equipment shed, basically a small building adjacent
It's
to
a
the school.
janitor's shed.
Janitor's shed, yeah.
That's right.
To make warm milk for a cat. And so he asks her to be his friend and says, "Hey, will you come to my room?" And they go and he's a bit of a slob, while also maybe a germaphobe. He likes old retro video games. He's got like a Super Nintendo, and then they talk about like
Tons of manga.
tons of
Manga.
and they talk about his favorite one, and it's about like a girl who has to break all the rules to do what she wants. And Nana's like, "Yes, that one is great," and I love that the character has to do what's right even though it seems wrong. And he's like, "Yeah. Right? Are we talking about the same thing?" This is the scene where she's taking it on like, "You're hitting on me," so she calls him an F boy, and he's like, "An F boy?" She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He's like, "No, what is that? I like to learn things, and I don't know what that is."
He literally
she
gets
has
out
to-
a book and
Yeah,
starts writing it
taking
down
notes.
as she's explaining it to him.
But yeah, we learn about his sister who went missing on this island, and he takes her to the cliff and shows her the watch. And so he's like, "I'm pretty sure he was murdered." So they go and they tell the teacher, and the teacher's like, "Oh, I'll call for help," and he doesn't get any answer that helps. Which
I'm
is
wondering how many phone calls this teacher's actually making.
Yeah.
Nana mentions seeing a cat having problems, but she had sets a trap basically. So Kyoya goes to make milk for the cat, and there's now a gas leak in the janitor's room, and it explodes.
But he can't smell, right?
That's right.
Yes. But she didn't know. She thought he would run in and then run out when he realized it, except for nope, big explosion. And she runs up to him, to the burned body, and she's calling out his name. "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then she turns to leave, and he grabs her, and he's like, "Why are you here?"
How'd you know I was in there?
"Yeah, I was a charred body. How'd you know it was me?"
Uh-huh.
And then he heals, and so his power he's Wolverine healing. He's literally invulnerable to all damage.
Like
and this
he
is when
takes it and then heals. It's so bad.
he's been clearly a little suspicious of her at this point, but now he's like super suspicious, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll let you know my weakness. I'll just think about it really hard."
Uh-huh.
Which is actually kind of funny because later he like is trying to rely on her mind reading for help with other issues, but it seems here he's very clearly, "I don't think you can do what you say you do."
I think he very much wavers between like, "I'm 100% sure you can't," and, "Well, maybe you can. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not 100% sure."
So he tells the class that someone had tried to murder him. And then the mean girls come into the office making fun of another character whose name is Michiru. Michiru is this cute, adorable ball of sunshine character. And they're teasing her
Of
because she has
course,
a
her
love.
power is healing.
Her power is
No.
healing, that she has to lick you, and she sees a wound on Nana's leg, and then goes and just licks her. And I might have made some jokes while watching this anime.
The anime
I'll
makes
bet.
those jokes too. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, this is Michiro, who's kind of, like I said, she's the ball of sunshine. So what did you guys think of her?
it's so tropey and so over the top and on the nose, and it fits perfectly in the story. Like, it is just this ball of like potential that they just kind of went toss. Like, we know you know this character way before you watching this anime. We know you know this character is uh nothing but loveliness. And yeah, we're throwing her in with Nana. What do you think of that? I love it because there's so many times throughout this anime where she's like, basically making friends with her, and she's like, okay, how am I gonna kill her? Should I kill her now or should I kill her later?
Right.
When was right that like one face they're like sharing a meal and like eating rice off each other's face, and the next moment like it's got that red hue, and she's like, all right, I think I'll kill her in a little bit.
I want to build on something you mentioned of the anime saying, you know who she is, we know who she is. This is clearly someone we've all met before. In the outro, that shows her pen, and I was like, oh, that's her pen. And then, I didn't even realize she doesn't even get it till the end of the anime. But I know you know the character so well. I saw that pen, I was like, yeah, that's definitely Michiru's pen. Even though the anime had never told me that.
Yep. She is so vital to the arc of the main character. It's incredible. And the things that they do with this character and the teeth that she has to pull in order to make that arc happen with the main character, with Nana, it's really well done. It was also really interesting. There's like a little moment where you get a hiccup and you start to question, oh, maybe she's not as nice as she seems. But then the story has other reasons why things happen. But I don't know. It was such a great combination of characters, and ordinarily I think I would be kind of bored with this character, like you were saying, Jason. But she was perfect for this. Absolutely perfect for this.
Yeah, I like her as the ball of sunshine. I kind of saw what was going to happen with her coming. They set it up. They set it up really well, but they also set it up really obviously. But it still had an emotional resonance even despite that. And like you said, just her relationship with this killer who's trying to kill her, that has plans to get rid of her, was fascinating. And you also know that she's a domino. If she gets suspicious, this whole thing comes down. Mm-hmm. Her naivety is so solid for Nana. Her support does so much help for Nana in her work that she becomes almost this linchpin in the plan. Like, no, she has to believe that I'm good, or this all falls apart. Later, that's why Nana gets to be class leader, is because of this character. The girls that are teasing her is because there's a love letter in her locker, and she goes to the garden because of the letter, and no one's there. And so Nana, having realized that this was clearly a trap, goes and comforts her, and they become friends because of this. And she's able to get rid of the bullies. And then Nana, we think, this is episode 4, and we're like, okay, we've met a character. Nana's going to kill said character.
Yeah.
She goes to leave her room, and Kyoyo is sitting outside, and she's like, this is the girls' dormitory. He's like, oh, I'm guarding you to keep you safe. Don't worry. Why are you leaving? It's the middle of the night. Don't worry about it. I was just sticking my head out. So she goes in, and then she sneaks out of her window, and we see her run to Michiru's room, and she goes in, and the last shot is we see her pulling up a weapon to stab her from behind. And then Kyoyo hears the screaming, and he runs, and when he gets there, Nana's on the ground bleeding, and Michiru's licking her.
Of course.
and we find out what happened is that Nana stabbed herself to throw Kyoyo off the scent. That, hey, if I'm attacked, who could the killer be?
But of course, Kyoya is thinking, but what if she stabbed herself?
So, but yeah, so Nana stabbed herself and then has slid up into like a little holster on her thigh, the weapon, and hidden it under her skirt.
A
And
gimlet? I've never heard of that before.
It sounds familiar, but yeah, some kind of
Looks like an ice pick almost.
the end of
Yeah.
a stick. Probably for piercing heavy armor or something. I don't know.
So a bunch of the classmates run in and they're like, "Oh, poor Nana, she's been attacked by an enemy." They're starting to. There's have always been rumors in this class that the enemy of the people are already on the island. They're all sneaking among us, and the ultimate form of the enemy of the people is they can appear human. So,
well, and
everyone's
also
like,
what I find really interesting about what this school is doing is they indoctrinate them to believe that these enemies of humanity, their powers are so fluid they can nearly do anything. And Nana can take advantage of that to an extreme level. And because of their indoctrination into that, like, they can be invisible, they can hit you from afar, but they can stab you with claws, or they can look like people. Everything's on the table for an excuse why you could blame a enemy of humanity on them.
This is why faceless enemies are so bad.
Yep.
so yeah, and so the classes are like, "Oh, Nana, she's so brave. She came in here to save Michiru." And Michiru's like, "She should be our leader." And everyone's like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." So now she's in charge of the entire class.
Kyoya does not like this idea.
Yeah, but Kyoyo does have to apologize out loud. "I'm sorry for having been suspicious of you."
But he's still suspicious.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
And then Nana is confronted with a character. He's the one with the blonde spiky hair. His name is Hada Daira, but I'm gonna call him the punk.
Yeah.
And he comes to her and he's like, "Hey, can I talk with you?" And he shows her a picture of her murdering him with a jump rope around his neck in the locker room. And she's like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "I can see the future. And I know that you're a serial killer." I don't know why. And I don't really care. And so she's like, "Well, that clearly can't be real." He's like, "No, it always comes true." And he shows her another picture of noodles on her head, and they're in the cafeteria late at night. She's like, "Well, what if I change my order? I don't want noodles," but they were already coming out, and that makes the waitress fall, and it falls on her head. He's like, "Nope, it always comes true." So here's what we're gonna. Oh, and he has one other picture of her murdering Nanoa in the first episode. He's like, "I had this picture already." So he blackmails her. He's like, "You got to be my girlfriend." And so she's giving.
What do you do with pictures of a serial killer? Make him your girlfriend.
Right? I was cracking up so bad.
His logic is, I can't stop this event that's coming from happening, but it doesn't show him dead. It shows him being attacked. So he's like, "I'll probably be fine, but since this has to happen, I clearly don't tell anyone, so I won't tell anyone."
And he can see his watch in the picture, so he's like, "You and I are staying together until 10 p.m."
Uh-huh.
So yeah, she gives him a back massage. She ends up having to clean his room. When he goes to sleep that night, he puts his hand on a camera, a Polaroid camera, and 5 pictures come out. And this is how his power works. When he dreams of the future, the camera produces pictures of those dreams. And Nana looks at one of the pictures and is like, "Oh no." So she takes the camera and she goes to the locker room to check it out. And realizes, okay, the camera's not magic. It's clearly him. It's not forged or anything. She goes back. He wakes up and he's like, "Hey, there's only 4 pictures here. I always produce 5." And she's like, "Oh no." And so he searches through her clothes and he
Body
finds
check.
Yeah.
creepy. "I'm your boyfriend. It's fine."
For today.
Finds that 5th picture and it's her strangled to death with the jump rope laying with her shirt open and everything.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, that's awesome." So he's like, "Yeah, now I know I win when you attack me. So you will be there at 10 p.m. and this will go down. And good luck to you. Thanks for being my girlfriend."
Right.
So she goes there. She actually changes his watch while he was sleeping so that he'll show up. He'll be off guard. And then when she gets she has poison needles that she keeps in this case, and this is her go-to weapon because the gimlet has obviously been used and would be suspicious. So she's getting ready to poison needle him when she drops it, though, right when he walks in. So she goes to strangle him, but he stops her and pins her down. And he's like, "Yeah, it doesn't matter you changed my watch. The watch in the picture is at 10 o'clock, which means it doesn't matter what the watch says. As long as the watch says 10 o'clock, that's when you attack. So you didn't do anything." And he's like, and he starts opening her shirt. He's like, "See, the picture is going to come true. I might as well have a good time." And all of a sudden he gets really weak and he dies. And she's like, "Yeah, you pinned me down right next to the poison needles. And I just poked you." And she reveals the picture of her dead was a fake. It was a selfie.
Mm-hmm.
And he dies. And then she reveals what the real fifth picture was, which is that Kyoyo and Michiru were going to catch her murdering him. Which they do. They walk in on her with a dead body, and she's like, "Well, here we go. I guess I gotta." And
Improvise.
She kind of tells a version of the truth. He was blackmailing me with naughty pictures, is what she says.
Mm-hmm.
And they had found the picture of her dead in his room, which is why they had showed up. And they had come here, and then she doesn't know why he died. And okay, they're like, "Okay, well, we only found the one picture. Maybe we should go back for more." She's like, "No, they're indecent of me, so don't."
I love that Kyoya goes back there anyways.
Yeah, she goes back to the punk's apartment to collect the pictures, and Kyoya catches her, and they have a bit of a conversation. He points out in the photo of her dying that the jump rope was wrapped around her neck twice. He's like, "That's weird, because if someone was just quickly attacking, they wouldn't take the time to go around your neck twice. They would just go once. That's how most people would do it." And she's like, "Oh, that is weird." Oh well. She goes back to the locker room, and Michiru is there, who's wanting to resurrect this dead punk, but has found the picture of Nana murdering Nanawa, and Nana walks in with her having that. And so the next episode starts right there, and Nana's like, "Okay, if she keeps the picture, she's dead. Like, she's obviously suspicious. Yep. If she shows it to me, that means she's just confused, and I can maybe work around this." And that's what happened. Michiru hands it back to her, and she's like, "Oh, I guess he couldn't actually tell the future." That's her.
Let's keep this our little secret, and she's just like enthralled. Like, I get to keep a secret with somebody.
Best friend secrets.
The murder, the best of secrets.
Oh God.
So they have a funeral for the punk, and Kyoyo bursts in and he's like, "I want to do an autopsy," and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know if we're comfortable with that. This is kind of, clearly not murder." and Nana, who's now claiming, "Yeah, I can read your minds, but I also hear the minds of souls and spirits," right? and he's calling out that he doesn't want to be autopsied.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the punk's body rises out of the coffin, and one of the other students, a boy named Shinji, gets up and he's like, "I'm a necromancer. I can make him talk and tell us what happened." And Nana's like, "Oh no, his soul is in pain. This is bad," and everyone gets upset. So Shinji's like, "Fine, I won't do it, I guess." And then the girl who's with Shinji, her name is Yuka. And we're gonna wait till we get to the end of this arc to talk about him. I think we need to properly talk about him.
I don't know if anyone else caught up or picked up on the twist that we're going to get to. I didn't see it coming at all.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't.
No,
I didn't.
Not till the last second. Yeah, and I was like,
yeah.
But yeah. So Yuka is like, sorry everyone, this is Shinji. He's a really sweet guy. He's just is a necromancer, but don't think he's weird. And then the next day, Shinji's not in class, so Nana goes and talks to Yuka and learns some more about him. And then she spies on him later, and they're clearly boyfriend and girlfriend. And her and Kyoya, she's spying on them, and Kyoya's spying on Nana. And he's like, "What are you spying on them for?" "Nothing. Let's go talk to them." And like, "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend?" And Yuka's like, "Yes." And Shinji's like, "Don't worry about it." And all grumpy, and he leaves. And they notice he's got a bandaged hand. Yuka tells the story. Hey, I have super strength. He's a necromancer. We were on a date once. There was a fire in a movie theater. He got trapped inside trying to save people. I broke down the door with my super strength and saved him, and we've been in a relationship ever since. That's her story, and she's sticking to it.
Mostly.
So Nana goes and kills Shinji. She poisons him in his sleep. He's laying in bed in the middle of the day, and she just stabs him. He's dead. Yeah. And on her way
poison
back,
needle.
Yep, poison needle. On her way back, she hears a cat meowing in the sewer. It's the same cat that Kyoya takes care of. And she goes to get Kyoya and Yuka to help save it. And they are, but Yuka, unfortunately, is allergic to cats, and when she sneezes, she doesn't have her super strength, so she can't help. But they're able to get
weakness ever.
Most cutest weakness ever. Yep. They're able to get the cat out, and then
Kyoya notices, like, "Why are you out here? Like, why are you so far out?"
Yeah, and Nana even points out, like, if I do this, I'm literally on the route between the murder body and back to where I was supposed to be. And I think she was. Didn't she say she was tired and like in the nurse's office? So she's not even. So she had a reason not to be in class, but had snuck out of there.
Yeah, that's where she was.
Her claim is, I heard the cat's mind calling for help.
Such a convenient excuse.
So then she goes to kill Yuka that night, but before she does, Shinji grabs her and he stops her and he pins her to the ground with his super strength.
Mm-hmm.
Because Shinji has super strength and Yuka is our necromancer, and Shinji was already dead.
Yep.
Has always been dead.
And has always been dead. So now we can talk about the characters Yuka and Shinji. Jeremy, what did you think of them?
Oh my God, I absolutely loved these characters because, like you said, Jason, I didn't catch this twist either, that they were reversed roles. And I also love the fact that, with Shinji being dead, you immediately think of, like, is this the circumstance where the necromancer resurrects them and they retain their mind? No, it's not. No, we have a very psychopathic necromancer here who is essentially masquerading as her dead, air quotes, boyfriend. And and just the complexities of this relationship are fantastic, and how you slowly watch as Yuka is revealed to be more and more insane. It's beautiful. They do a fantastic job with this. And at the same time, this is kind of a really good turning point, I think. Maybe not turning, but sort of a disturbing the path that she's been following so far for Nana, because she has moments where she's actually thinking, would I let her live? Could I let her live? And this is the first time that she's been considering that, and it was entirely because of this tragic romantic story, and so it was this little bit of humanization of talented people for her. But then it backfires and winds up being a perfect reinforcement of her indoctrination. And it's just mwah, it's perfect. I love how they do this. And it just sets up everything to come with later characters so well. Plus, I absolutely love the whole sequence in dealing with the zombies. And I love necromancers anyway, so this was awesome.
There's a couple moments where, like, Yuka's like real mad. She's like, we should go after him. And then so Shinji comes by, and this is after the reveal of she's basically puppeting him. Shinji comes and places his hand on her shoulder and is like, no, we should think of a different plan. And then they look longingly into their each other's eyes as like sparkles. And it's like, hold on. You're playing chess with yourself right now.
Yeah.
This is weird.
That's you.
And it just reinforces that, like, yeah, she's absolutely insane. And even when we get the really good reveal, which we're going to get here in a couple minutes, these characters were fantastic additions. And also, I think they were really necessary for this point in the story, because we have had some like moral wavering on Nana's part. And you're right, Jeremy. This was just like, yeah, these people are monsters. Because Kyoya is an absolute nightmare. And of course, she's a necromancer, kind of on the nose.
Yuka, yeah.
Or Yuka, yeah.
I really like them. They're really good antagonists for this arc, and a really good, hey, if I'm trying to murder somebody, how do I beat someone who's already dead?
Yes.
Again, yeah, just, I mean, we actually don't really get to see many standard superpowers. There's the powers that Nana goes against in this first season are more stuff like who can out me, who can reveal the truth of what's going on, and those have to be the top priority. So they're more fun than I'm just going after the Flash. I'm going after a necromancer, a time traveler, and they bring their own puzzle element, and then it's so fun. Like I said, it's solving a murder backwards so you can commit it right. and I just have so much fun. And Yuka's and Shinji's was this unique. Okay, she got Shinji, but that doesn't do anything. And now the dead are her weapon. Oh no.
Yep.
I did like that Yuka calls her out, like, you were testing your hypothesis while I'm trying to murder you. Like that's so good. Yes. Because that's all Nana has on her side is her mind and her ability to think on her feet and like deduce things and like come up with theories. So this arc is pretty great.
It is interesting that while they're threatening her and kind of going through the story, Nana actually fully admits, like, yeah, I'm here to kill you. Like and you just see the glee, like the real Nana gets to come out and talk to another character, and that's cool. That she finally got to let loose a little bit. And Nana is like, look, let's make a deal. You know I'm a killer. I know your boyfriend's dead. We both don't need to tell everyone that. You let me go, and I'll tell you what his spirit is saying. And I love that card of I'm actually a mind reader is the one that always works for her. And that works. Yuka's like, oh, you can tell me what the real Shinji is thinking. I can hear his soul. Tell me what he's thinking. And Nana goes, he's thinking you should kill Nana, and runs out the door. And to be fair, that was probably true because
well, I love her instant assumption is, oh, if I kill her, I can use her superpower to then talk to Shinji all the time.
Yes.
It totally bamboozles her. I love it.
Yep.
So Nana runs into the woods and she learns that Yuka uses totems, items that were touched by the deceased that she can then use to bring them back, and that's how her power works. And on her necklace is Shinji's remains or something, or something from Shinji that she keeps. But she'd seen a bunch of stuff under her bed as well. And then Nana tries to get the necklace from her. It doesn't work. She goes deeper into the woods, and then zombies start showing up. And the zombies were in the OP, and I was really excited for the zombies, and they were worth it. They were a great addition to the story. Except for and Nana's like, why are there a ton of dead people in these woods to become zombies?
That was my first thought.
Yep.
And they're not just students; they're clearly teachers and students from the past. And they're all chasing Nana. She ends up at this cottage, and she starts working on the door to get it ready for when the zombies come. And
one thing about her power, though, too, because obviously Shinji has been dead for quite some time, but he looks like a normal boy. She mentioned that she can basically stop the decaying process, but all the zombies were in a state of decay, basically showing that, yeah, these were old corpses that she was able to raise.
And as is evidenced by both Shinji and one of the corpses, she can access the talents that they possessed while alive because she has dark vision.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how she was able to keep tracking her. Nana's working theory is that since Shinji never shows up for the school and only comes out in the evenings, is that the zombies can't be out in the sunlight. So she hides in this cabin as Yuka and Shinji and the other zombies start approaching. She runs in, and there's 3 zombies in there, and they immediately attack her. But the sun does rise, and so she is saved. And Yuka locks the door and is like, "That's fine. We'll be back tonight." And locks her in the cabin.
Because it locks from the outside.
Yep. Latches it shut and goes to class. Kyoya is like, "Hey, have you seen Nana?" "No, I haven't." He's like, "Hey, your necklace is about to break," and he leaves. Then Yuka and Shinji go back that night to get Nana, and when they open up the door, it's empty. Except for the dead zombie girls, and she's like, no. One of the zombie girls is you, and pulls her up, and it's not. And she's like, well, what's going on? And then it's like, is so perplexed. She even like locks herself in there and practices ramming the doors. Like, no, you can't get out of here. Where'd she go? And so as the sun starts coming up, she heads back to her dorm, and Nana's there and tackles her, and Nana's like, "You're an idiot." I didn't barricade the door. I took the screws out of the lock hinge on the other side so you could just push it open after you locked it. I was never locked in. And I don't care about your stupid necklace. And she reaches into her back pocket and pulls out a little piece of paper with the number 98. And she had told the story about Shinji was really grumpy one time when he got a 98 on a test and had torn up the test. And it's clearly that test. And that's the real relic for Shinji. Because Nana had also noticed the necklace is about to break, which is not something you would do for your beloved zombie boyfriend if you needed to keep control of him. But whenever she was attacked, she would put her hand on her back pocket, so Nana knew where the totem was. And they go to the seaside cliff, and Nana's like, yeah, I'll get rid of this. And she throws away the totem. And
well, she holds it there at first and starts
she
asking
questions her
questions.
Yeah.
And
she's like, so Yuka's story had been, hey, we went to the movie. The guy next to me had spilled a drink on me, and then Shinji accidentally spilled a drink on me, and then a fire had ended up starting, and we were in. So Nana starts asking her like, where was your drink when you were watching the movie? If there was a drink on your right and a drink on your left, where would you put your drink? She's like, oh, I don't know. And she's like, okay, but you also said you went on the weekend, but you also said he was in his school uniform. So when did you go to the movies? Oh, I don't know. And she's like, so what really happened? And Yuka confesses that Shinji had an actual girlfriend, and Yuka was just super jealous, but she didn't kill him. She just set fire to the place that killed him.
And then resurrected his body.
And then, has forced him to be her boyfriend ever since.
So gross.
So Nana kills Yuka and with a poison needle, and then pushes her off the cliff. But like Jeremy had mentioned, this is her moment of, why did I ask her that? Like, if she had answered differently, was I going to spare her? Was that my plan? What was I just doing? And her first, and then she realizes she needs a plan. So when she's on her way back, she runs into one of the girl bullies. So there's Haru, who is a girl who has the ability to create poisons with her body, and there's Kaori, who is the other bully, or her best friend, who's a teleporter. And they've had a falling out because Haru apparently took the contact lenses of Kaori that gave her blue eyes. And like they show their phone like, you B word. I hope you die. So Nana poisons Haru right there, and is like, "I'll give you I've poisoned you. Give me the antidote. Or I'll give you the antidote if you unlock your phone for me." And so she does, and she's like, "Okay, well, I'm obviously gonna let you die. I don't care about you." So Haru dies.
She's so evil.
And then Nana's wondering, like, "Okay, I got the phone, and I need a plan because I'm getting a little bit too suspicious. I've been venting too much, whatever you want to call it." She needs to come up with a plan, but no matter what she does it with risk. Anyway, we don't see what she does. She eventually goes against Kyoya and the fire guy and the ice guy, and they all go out to where Shinji is, and she tells them what happened. Like, Shinji was a zombie the whole time. Yuka was the necromancer, and she committed suicide. She attacked me, and she committed suicide. I think she was possessed by the enemy of humanity, but
Because I could hear their voices out in the woods.
Yep.
I would get so mad every time that she used the enemies of humanity as her reason, because I'm like, yes, it does work. Yes, it's the correct response. It's perfect, but it's such a cop out. I hate it so much.
Right?
Just in their world space. Yes.
So they all agree that Haru should burn the zombies' bodies, and it's clear that one of the zombies is a blonde-haired girl.
Well, she even kept asking Kyoya, like, "Is this okay? Do you want to examine
Do you
any
want
of
to
them?"
check the bodies? Yeah.
Right.
And I love how his response is like, I'm just going to follow you. I'm going to watch you. Oh, you want me to look at the bodies?
Yep. I'm not
It's
taking
like
my
having
eyes
a
off you.
conversation.
My whole
Yep.
thing is I'm watching you nonstop.
Mhm.
So they burn the bodies. And I skipped over a part. She had gone to the other girl, Kaori's room, and put the contact lenses back, had put poison in the saline solution, and closed the window. And she noticed there's a messed up window. It only opens from the side it's not supposed to open from. The side you're supposed to open doesn't open. So she closes that. Okay, then she goes with her plan. They hear, and Kyoya's like, "Guys, everyone, listen up. Has anyone noticed that every time someone dies, Nana is there?" And then, conveniently, they hear Kaori dying where Nana isn't.
Perfect timing.
So they run in, and like this horrific of her like grabbing her eye, and she's
So
like dead
grotesque.
posed holding her eye.
Uh-huh.
And Nana's like, "Oh, what you gonna do, Kyoya?
Uh-huh.
Got you. I wasn't here. I couldn't have killed her." And he starts investigating the crime scene, and he drinks the saline solution because he's like, "Look, she's obviously grabbing her eye, and it clearly poisons him."
Nana is terrified at this point, him
Yeah.
drinking the saline solution.
So, in character, to help him, she opens the window for him so he can get some fresh air. And then he realizes, like, yes, she was poisoned. And everyone's like, well, it could have been Haru then, who, the girl who makes poisons. Like, well, we don't know where she is. And then they do some more investigating, some talking. And eventually, Kyoya's like, hey, so were you, like, friends with her? Because interesting thing about this window is it doesn't open the way it should open. It opens the opposite way, but you didn't seem to struggle with that at all. and Nana's like, crap. And they find Kaori's phone, and there's a text from Haru about the contact lenses, showing Haru must have been the killer, right? Some pretty incriminating text.
And the timestamp, it puts them, like, their group out in the woods burning bodies at that time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Kyoya gathers everyone. He's like, okay, guys, I know who done it, and I'm going to prove it to y'all right now. And he goes through the whole, he calls out Nana's plan perfectly. He's like, you hid her body in the zombies, so when we burned it, we wouldn't notice. You had put the poison in the saline, and then you sent the text so that this would all go down. And then but I've watched you this whole time. You couldn't have gotten rid of the phone. So you have to have the phone on you. And I'm going to search your pockets right now. And then the episode ends. And then next episode starts, and he searches her pockets, and there's no phone. And Nana reveals what she really did, which was she
To us.
Yeah, to us. She put the phone under one of the dead zombies so that when the sun hit it, the finger would warm up and then hit send for her.
Because it melts onto the phone.
Melts onto the phone. Oh,
I
disgusting.
I do like how they basically had her go through her plan A, plan B, plan C.
Yeah.
Which
that was cool.
shows that she does have fault, but that she's smart enough to be able to like reason all of this out and like what's my best shot. Because she was like, this is probably highest risk, highest reward. Because if Kyoya just stumbles across the phone on the ground, well, now he knows, right?
I was wondering how the people who were burning the bodies didn't notice the phone, because she even says later, oh, well, the phone's burned up now along with the zombie. But I guess maybe she's just relying on their lack of observant nature and also just maybe disgust with dead bodies. And so just don't look at it, just burn it. That might have been enough.
So everyone gets really upset with Kyoya. Like, hey, man, you can't just be accusing cute girls of murder willy-nilly.
Just to feel them up in front of us.
And he feels utterly defeated at this point.
And he knows he's right. He's like, I have all the pieces, but I can't prove it.
And I love up until the moment of when he says to Pop, that Nana's like, he knows everything I did. He figures it out 100% except the phone part.
Yep.
That night, Nana is sitting out, standing guard, and Michiru comes out and she's like, you really need to rest. You've been pushing yourself so hard. And so she does fall asleep. And then when she wakes up, Michiru is holding a box cutter to her throat.
Favorite moment in the anime. Favorite moment, because it was like, what?
Right?
What?
This tropey girl? There's no way she's doing this.
Yeah. So for a second there, I thought maybe we have another Nana, maybe she's not planning to kill everybody, but she's just as good at playing poker face and, is good at manipulation. I was loving that possibility.
If you're so good at reading minds, how'd you not know I was thinking about this?
Yes. Yes, I love that line.
Yeah, so this Michiru is demanding answers and is like, I know you can't read minds. What is your power? And I'm going to expose you. And she lets her go. And
Nana actually does a move and smashes her hand. Yep. And so Michiru is like, oh, you've had combat training. Interesting. That's all she says. She's like totally in control the whole time. This is not the Michiru we know.
So the next day at school, Michiru brings her a present in front of everyone. Is like, I got you a present. I'll give it to you when you tell me what it is.
I'm thinking it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Nana obviously can't. And she's like, well, maybe later. I'm really tired. I'm going to sneeze.
Woo!
That was fun.
That's
beautiful.
Oh, that was building for a while. I was trying to suppress it. So yeah, Michiru brings her this present. It's like, you tell me what it is. I'm thinking about it, and you can have it. And Nana's like, I'm really tired. I guess I just can't hear your thoughts. She's like, we'll do it at lunch. Don't worry about it. And in the evening, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. If that's what it takes. So that the next time she comes up to her, she's like, okay, tell me what it is. And she tells her it's
a greeting card.
Yeah, a greeting card. And it's not. It's a bath set. And she's like, "Oh, I guess you couldn't read my mind." And then there's a piece of paper on Michi. And we had seen Nana take out a piece of paper and a marker. She had stuck this paper on Michiru's back, and it says something about like Michiru's in love with Nana.
Yeah. And so everybody's been reading this standing around behind her because they're all there to watch the spectacle. And so Nana's then able to say, oh, I guess I just heard the loudest thoughts from everybody. I'm sorry.
And everyone's like, well, we were all thinking that, so she must be a mind reader.
Yep.
Michiru
Until Kyoya comes up and is like, Wait, who put the sign on her back?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, don't worry about that.
So everyone gets mad at him. Oh, you gonna accuse someone else of murder? He's like,
Uh-huh.
all right, I need one of you to be my BFF.
He's like, I'm in the market for a friend.
Yeah.
Nana and Michiru have another conversation, and Nana points out you're not Michiru because where you got hurt in the hand yesterday, it still hurt, and you could have licked that spot and healed it. And also, you're clearly not Michiru. You're a fake. And we meet who this character really is, which is a shapeshifter named Jin, who we'll find out is from a class like 5 years ago, who is still on the island, and he's also been the cat some of the times. He literally tells her, "Will you tell Kyoya I'm a little done with the warm milk?" Okay, but a new wrinkle into the powers at play here. What did you guys think of Jin?
I really liked his introduction, not just because of what he plays in the story, but also he's this huge lore dump. That's what's happening on the island, and it was fantastic to get more information about what was going on because, we'll learn later that we had very much a Hunger Games situation going on. Not quite the same, but last one standing kind of thing. And so that kind of shows like where his power level is as well. But yeah, he's manipulative at the same time. He wants it, unsure of what his total goals are, or like what his end goals are. And yeah, he was a really good addition, especially at this point in the story.
Yeah. I was a little worried that the story was going to get kind of formulaic. Nana finds a target, Nana kills a target, Kyoga can't reveal her. And then when they introduced this character, I was like, I don't know where it's going now. This is amazing. I love it. And I think of his powers more along the lines of like a druid than anything else, because he's a shapeshifter that prefers to be with animals. He holds the animals in higher regard than his beloved classmates. And as we gradually get to know more and more of that lore that he's a part of, and we learn the parts that he played in it, which is still kind of vague, but at least we do have a pretty good idea of who he was in the scheme of things. It's fascinating to add this element of a character who can just show up at any time, constantly observe Nana, and just walk around casually, comfortably, and talk to her and say things that nobody else has either the inkling or the ability or the authority to say. And he's almost omnipotent in this situation. And I just love that element because, like you said, Troy, earlier, with Kyoya being sort of like this piece on the table that follows her around and can't be removed from the board. This guy is like something else entirely, where like he's a piece that sometimes shows up and sometimes isn't there, but maybe that's just you thinking it's not there. And it's doing things in this part of the board that you don't have a clue what it's doing, and you can't touch it either. And it was really, really cool.
I also love that he's both enemy and ally. He's sometimes willing to help her because he wants to build trust with her and get something from her, but also ultimately our goals are not running together, so ultimately we are against each other, but also I want to help you sometimes. So you never know where he's going to go. And I do think like him and Kyoya would team up. Their goals seem very similar, whereas Kyoya is like, what is going on with this island? This guy's like, what's going on with the world?
Right.
And who sent you? And can I find out more about them?
What's up with that phone? So yeah, he takes her to his cave that
it's
he
like
lives
literally
in.
a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Like you
On
look
the
straight
beach.
up and it's just a big hole.
He's got like a sleeping bag, and he reveals his class 5 years ago basically just started killing each other. It started out slowly, but then it just became a a free for all, and then it became teams, and the most powerful on each team thought the other one might be more powerful, and they all were murdering each other until he was the only one left because he's the most powerful. We'll find out.
Yep.
And he even had left the island. Everyone thought he was dead, so he came back. And so, yeah, his ultimate goal is to figure out like what is actually going on here. And I find it really interesting to hear his version of what happened, because I hear his version and I wonder if someone else from Nana's class would think that same series of events is what happened with his class. Because he's like, hey, we just started killing each other, but maybe someone specifically started killing people, which led to more and more, and then eventually everyone's killing each other. And he even mentions there was one guy who had a phone talking about our potential kill counts, which is what Nana gets in her text. She gets text like, this guy could potentially in the future kill 800,000, 500,000. And that's, one of the reasons she is okay with killing the people she kills. And someone from Jin's class had been mentioning the same things. That makes me wonder, like, okay, does this happen regularly where they send in an assassin to make these superhero kids murder each other and see who comes out the best, or is it just to wipe them out? I think there's still a use for that. I don't think they want the talented just dead, because I do think you could just drop a bomb on the island and be done with it. They are building something or someone into something. But I don't know if it's Nana or if it's one of the talented. Do they want a talented to emerge, or do they just want an assassin who can kill talented at a whim? I don't know.
It kind of seems like the assassins are sent in to spark the conflict, and it almost feels like a Mr. Glass kind of situation where they're trying to see who's most powerful, who's last man standing, because then we have like the pinnacle of the talented, and we can then take and use those. We
also, again, another anime with a faceless council. At least they're in person this time, but geez Louise. But we do see them later on, and they're talking about Nana, and they're like, she's done 4 kills. That's really good. I didn't think she'd get this far. They don't seem to expect a total extermination. They just seem to wanted to push that first domino and see what happened. And the fact that Nana's gotten to 4 is like, ooh, cool. That's cool, but not important to them. All right, so Nana, after getting this lore dump, poisons him and is like, haha, I got you. She poisoned his drink, right?
Yeah, it's coffee.
And he dies. And then she pulls up her phone to call HQ. And then
because he mentioned as he's dying, like, what are you going to tell your commanders about me?
Yeah, so manipulative. So she calls the commanders, and the shot is Kyoya behind her being like, what's this? And pulling out her phone. But then we reveal it's still Jin. But he not only can shapeshift, but he gets the powers of anyone he shapeshifts into. So he can also be invincible at will.
Because he even shows the hand that had the bandage on it. And he's like, yes, I can heal as well when I'm in this form.
Yeah, I let you see that to figure me out because I wanted you to think I had a weakness. That's just how you manipulate people. You should learn that. And she tries to run away, and he comes out, turns into the fireball guy, and just blasts her in the back and sends her flying. And then is like, oh yeah, we're gonna need to work together.
Sorry about that. New power, so I didn't know how to control it.
Yep.
He takes her back to Michiru, who heals her up. And then eventually he shows up again at Nana's dorm, and he's like, I want to hear your backstory. And she's like, no. And then Michiru shows up, and he turns into a cat, and Michiru comes in and is like, tell me your backstory.
God, I love this sequence because Michiru has the cat on her lap. And so as Nana's telling the story, and there's parts where Michiru is like, oh man, and she's waving her arms around, the cat rears up and starts waving its arms around, and you know it's Jin, and it's just awesome. You're like, Jin's just basically taunting her. Come on, tell me the story.
And so earlier she had told me Michiru about her parents having been killed, and then tells the whole story about how as a little girl she loved strategy board games, chess, Go, all those, and always had a really super messy room. And her parents would always, be like, clean up your room and lock your window at night. And then, but she would sneak out at night to buy manga from the store down the street. Had snuck out one night, come back, and then in the morning, her parents were murdered. And the cops were like, "Well, did you lock that window?" And she's like, "I thought I did." And they're like, "Yeah, they're pretty sure the murderer came in through the window. Whoops, we weren't supposed to tell you that. That might scar you for life." So her whole life has
Our
been
bad.
her whole life has been, I caused the death of my parents by being a bad kid and not listening.
And also, like, I called this out in the chat when I saw the scene, because holy crap, that's 2 anime in what, like 3 months now, because we watched Claymore and you have a little girl running with a severed head. I was like, I did not see that coming.
Yeah,
So,
that scene of her running around, "Someone help me," and it's her dad's head.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep. So sad.
Now we never find out if a talented murder her parents or not, right?
Exactly. There's no evidence
Because that's what I
presented
thought
to
the
us.
motivation was.
Yeah.
And then we never find out if that was the case.
Yep.
I thought well, I mean, we don't get any proof, but I thought she thinks they a talented did. I thought she
thinks so, or
Okay,
at
okay.
least, but
Just to
yeah,
clarify
and
that.
it seems like it's very much a part of the indoctrination that she got afterwards.
Right. Michiru comforts her, and then the next morning Kyoyo barges in and he's like, "I need your help. There's been a murder." And Nana's like, "I didn't kill anybody."
Yeah.
So now we actually have a real murder mystery to solve. So it was a chubby dude
Yep.
who they find with his throat slit halfway out a window, and they're talking to the guy next to him was the fire guy, and his 3 lackeys were in the room that night. It would have been after the funeral of someone who
Punk.
just died. Yeah. Yep.
And he was
had been
giving a pep talk for
Pep
5
talk.
hours.
5 hours straight. But they never heard anything happen, so there was no struggle or anything that they heard. And then in the morning, his girlfriend Fuka had found his body, and so they start investigating. They ask everyone what their power is, and so there's obviously the fire guy. There's a guy who can manipulate. He has magnetism, but he can only draw metal objects to himself. There's a guy who can do astral projection, and he has irritable bowel syndrome. And there's a guy who can mimic voices. And
The
then
worst Magneto ever.
right.
Yes.
And they're like, "Okay, girlfriend, what's your power?" And she's like, "Well, I can cut people with air." And I honestly was like, "Oh, I'm kind of suspicious of this girlfriend." And she's like, "I can cut people." I'm like, "It's not you." That's like dead on the ultimate power you would need for this. And so that's a little too easy. But they take her outside and they're like, "Show me how you cut people." So they have her demonstrate on Kyoya, and she
Basically an airbender.
yeah, she just blasts him and slices him in half, and he's like, "Okay, that was pretty strong." And she's like, "Well, I can't do it in stuffy rooms." And they're like, "Well, the window was open." Dun dun dun. I can't do the Law and Order sound.
You can do it if it's from your own voice.
And Nana notices that Michiru is upset. She's just not herself. And Nana also realizes her poison has been missing ever since her run-in with Jin. And that,
because the teacher came to deliver her uniform because they needed to repair it. And when he hands her the uniform, she's like, the bottle of poison was in.
And she was planning on having gotten rid of it until everything with Jin had happened, and so she had ended up keeping it. So she goes to search Michiru's room. No, they investigate first. They question Fuko. The chubby guy was learning to exercise. They weren't as close. She has an alibi. She has a friend with, and also, anime. When someone says they have an alibi, can we see the alibi get checked out? Okay, just because someone says they were hanging out with a friend, you have to go ask that friend. Please,
Yeah.
that's investigating
Which is
101.
funny because they do that with like several other characters, but the one character that is presented as a suspect doesn't have that happen.
The chubby guy's power was shrinking. We learned from Kyoya.
They make a great argument here for how Ant-Man should always be able to escape. He should never be able to be caught.
So yeah, then Nana goes to Michiru's room and searches for the poison, and then finds her diary and is like, "Oh, this will tell me how suspicious she's been the whole time." And she reads it, and it's none, zeros, not a.
It's pure shining goodness.
Yep. Nana is the best thing in the whole world. She's so brave. I love it so much. And then Jin go ahead.
Does anybody like? She walks in. She's like, "Oh, she's in the shower. I better. I have a chance to look at her diary." Literally every crime drama ever, you hear the shower running, the person's dead in the bathroom. That was my immediate thought as soon as she walked in. I was like, "Oh, shower's running. She's dead."
Yep. Not far off.
Yeah. So then Jin shows up. He's like, "Oh yeah, I have your poison and your cell phone. Here you go. I'm giving it back as a show of goodwill. Also, you should probably check on your friend. She's been in the shower a long time, eh?" And she's passed out. And when Nana finds her, she's like, "I could just walk away, and that's a free kill."
Right.
And she's like, "No, I need her for my mission. She's part of the mission now. She's a useful tool to me."
Convincing herself that she needs to save her.
Yep. So she does, and then she goes to the teacher. She's like, "Where's the doctor?" And he's like, "The doctor didn't definitely leave. No, that'd be weird." And she's like, "Well, where's the other teachers?"
Didn't definitely leave.
They're all asleep and not worried about murders. There's still problems. She goes to Kyoya, and he's in the murder scene still investigating. He's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Can I have medicine?" He's like, "I'm investigating." Then she goes and she breaks into the cafeteria and makes her some soup. And then Kyoya does bring medicine, and he's like, "This room sure looks searched through." She's like,
I did like his initial thought of she's like, "Hey, can I get some Tylenol?" And he's like, "You know a lot about medicine." She's like, "It's an over-the-counter drug."
Well, that's not what she says in the sub.
Acetaminophen. Yeah. I mean, come on. If I know that name, all right. Yeah. So he eventually does bring, and like I said, he's like, "This room looks searched through. I was trying to find her clothes in her desk." Don't worry about it. Yeah. And then Fuka visits and is like, "I can look over her," and Nana's like, "No, murderer."
You're not stealing this kill from me.
Nana's whole thing is like, I feel like she knows something. She's still just really suspicious of Michiru. She was obviously upset. This happened. Like something's going on with her. She's involved with all of this somehow. Something's up. And so Michiru finally does awaken, and they have this really nice bonding moment about messy hair, and I liked it. And
it was cute.
You got to see Nana be nice for like the first real time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the real Nana. Jin meets the killer in the woods, and we had learned that dogs and small animals were having their throats slit recently, and it's related to the murder. And so Jin, who when he comes across the killer in the woods holding a dead rabbit with its throat slit, is like, can you please leave the animals alone? Because that's not cool, dude. Kill the people. I don't care.
Yeah. That's why I think this guy is like the perfect druid, where he's like, I don't care about the
Yep.
people, but don't touch my
Right.
animals.
And then Nana questions Michiru about an old friend that had been mentioned in her diary, and we learn Michiru's backstory, which is she had been a kid who was bullied in school because of the way her power worked, and then had healed a dog one day, and the rough, tough girl who really liked that dog had from then on took her under her wing and protected her from bullies. And then
Best friends.
Yeah, best
You have
friends.
the
And then,
confidence to like do volunteer work.
yeah, and then Michiru, because of that, started working at her father's hospital more and helping more, but eventually did learn that her powers do drain her life force, or the time in her life. And she got sick one day and then ran into her friend at that hospital. And her friend's like, yeah, I've always been here. I have cancer. This is a wig. And they talk about being brave and have this really nice, sweet moment. But then she had died. And that was her backstory.
Mhm. I love that the whole reason Nana is asking her about this backstory is that she's fishing for her dark side.
Yep.
She's been doing it step by step by step, and this was just another opportunity to try and prove that Yuka was not an anomaly and that Michiro is just as bad and deserves to die. And we keep getting this scene where Nana's in the hallway outside of Michiro's room, and she keeps checking her phone and looking at the 150,000 plus kill potential, and she keeps turning it on and turning it off and turning it on and turning it off and turning it on and turning it off, and you can tell that it's that war inside of her. They did such a good job of showing that conflict. And after this sequence, no, it's not after this sequence. I think it's after the next sequence, but she eventually winds up just looking at it and then turning it off and putting it away, and that was really cool.
I do think it's here because she storms out of the room and then looks at it and then goes to her room. She's really upset about this because basically she's been debunked about her entire thought process on these talented.
Well, and then earlier she even tried to like justify it, like after she tried resurrecting the punk kid, she's like, 150,000. That just doesn't make sense with the person that I know. But powers do evolve. Maybe that's how it happens. And
right.
Yeah.
And even Jin brings something up to the audience at one point when he's talking about the potential kill count. And he says, well, you can even make a stone seem like a diamond sometimes. So it's really clear that they're definitely manipulating these numbers just to kind of prioritize who they want her to kill. They may even just be randomly assigning numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially since the first guy who had like 1 million was his powers to nullify powers.
Yeah. But yeah.
So yeah, Michiru comes to Nana's room and is like, I have to confess something, but first I need to ask you something. The day you woke up where your parents were murdered and you found your parents, did your feet hurt? Did you step on anything? And she's like, no, I wait. And she's like, yeah, see, your room was clean. But your room was never clean, which means after you went to sleep, after you snuck up for the manga, your parents had come into your room and they'd cleaned your room and they probably locked your window.
Because they used to yell at you about locking your window all the time.
They would have checked that. And you just had nice parents and it said nothing to do with your fault. And even if you did forget to lock your window, you didn't murder anybody. This isn't your fault. And this is the moment Nana's like, this is my best friend. And
And it takes so much effort. Like when Michiro goes to hug her and everything, they did a really good job of showing how Nana's just limp there because, you know, being indoctrinated as she is, she's not going to hug her victim, right? That's too close. You can't allow that level of humanization. But she finally breaks through. Michiro finally breaks through that indoctrination, and she does bring her arms up, and she does give her a hug. And I was like, wow, this is one of the only times that a hug has actually hit me right here. You know, that was impressive.
So the supply ship arrives the next day, which means students get to go shopping. And Nana decides to buy a gift for Michiru, an actual like nice thing to do for another person first time she's obviously ever done this.
Yeah.
And it's the pen from the ending credit. Now again, that pen was super obvious who that belonged to and what it's foreshadowing, but if you hadn't caught that at this moment, you're like, oh no, that's the pen.
And it makes you wonder too, like when you're watching the intro and you see the pen, you're like, why does the pen deserve to be in the intro? This is just Michiru's pen. But now it makes perfect sense.
Yep. So, and then she also gets Nana gets a present from her. It's a nice pillow. So she goes back to her room. And
Okay, hang on. This cracked me up so bad because of all the things that Michiru could give her, she gives her a pillow, and the reason is because she's like, I know that you have trouble sleeping at night. She's not having trouble sleeping at night.
She
prefers to kill at night.
Yeah. Jin visits Nana that night. And he's like, hey, I just passed your friend Michiru going to meet someone who's probably the murderer, just so you know.
FYI.
Yeah. So we see Nana run off. Now we find out later that she doesn't just run off. She comes up with a plan, but yeah, she runs off, and
she thinks to herself like, I could just let this happen.
Well, on the way, and I skipped over his intro scene. The council was shown talking to him with that scene where they're like, "Oh, she's killed up to 4 people. That's actually pretty good. We thought one and done." And it's her trainer, and I wrote his name down somewhere. It's Mr.
Starts with a T.
Tisaka, yeah. Anyway, he sends her a text or calls her or something, and he's like, "Hey, you're doing you're not losing focus, right?" or stuff like that. And so after that call, she's like, "What do I care if 2 enemies of humanity kill each other?" But then she goes, because of course she did. We just went through all this emotional heartbreak. We're not gonna throw that away. But we do see Michiru being attacked by the killer, and we learn who the killer is. It is the astral projection guy.
Is that the one you called?
It is.
Not
so not in like a real detective way, more in a here's our list of suspects. If it's the one who seems obvious, that's our red herring, and everyone else was in that room. Who could come into this room and kill him? The astral projection guy. When I did tell my daughter, she's like, well, how would he can't touch things? I'm like, he just flushed the toilet. And then the anime does point that out.
Yep.
That was your clue. He can interact with physical objects. I thought it was a one-off joke too, but it worked out. So it is the astral projection guy, and so he's astral projecting with a knife, killing things, which is a little uncreative, I thought, but whatever. He's attacking Michiru at the cottage. Nana runs in and takes the stab wound for her, and literally just gets stabbed over and over in the back as she's she's telling Michiru, like, you run, I'll take care of this. And Michiru doesn't. She's like, you're worthless, you're a dog, I look down on you, you're the kind of people I hate.
Been manipulating you the whole time. I was never your friend.
So Michiru leaves, and then she's about to get killed, but Kyoya has found the real body of this guy, and has stopped him.
He's choking him. I love how the astral projection gets like these fingers wrapped around its neck.
Now he doesn't kill him; he just knocks him out, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems like that'll be a problem. Because
he doesn't even knock him out; he just pulls him back.
But doesn't Nana confess to him?
I don't think she confesses outright to any murders. I just think she confesses to having a dark soul, because that's what he's accusing her of.
Yeah, he keeps saying she has a dark soul.
That was the only thing that worried me, was like, if he knows and he's awake and he's with Kyoya, that's a big problem for her. But anyway, so he's stopped, and she had gone to Kyoya before, and they'd come up with this plan. Like, I'll go save her, you go find the real bodies, and then we'll be able to stop him. And then Michiru comes back, and Nana's dying. And this whole anime, every time someone dies, Michiru is like, I want to resurrect them. And Nana's like, that's dumb. That will kill you because it takes away your life. And Michiru finally does it. She evolves her power to resurrect somebody and brings Nana back to die.
Nana's she's taken so much damage. She can't talk, but in her mind, she's screaming at Michiru,
Yeah,
"Let me
don't.
die!"
Yeah, because this was the whole point that she even came out here and took the knife blades and everything was to save her life, to have her sacrifice it to bring her back. Just very good storytelling.
And that's how the anime ends, with Michiru dying, Nana crying over her body, and then we end there. And like I said, I don't think there is any plans for further seasons, but you never know. Devil is a part timer. Season 2 coming. Sometimes miracles come true. But I do know the story goes on from here. But yeah, any quick thoughts on how this ended?
I think one of the brilliant things this anime did was not just the reverse detective story, but this scene in particular shows that we're willing to spend multiple episodes developing a character and then kill them. So that means literally no one is off the table. And I think that was a brilliant move on their part.
Yeah. Yeah. I would watch more. If there was another season of this, I would watch it because I'm really curious about how you can maintain the interest of the audience with this. I mean, it's clearly departed from the formula it started with, and I love the direction it went. So that gives me a little bit of reason to trust that they would go in another cool direction. They might foobar it, but I would definitely be interested to see what they do. Like how does it change the dynamic when you introduce her trainer? Does that undo a lot of what happened because of Michiko, right? Does it put her back on the steps of being like a murderer again, but it's only because she's being watched? Like, how does it influence things? I'm super interested in that. Yeah, I really liked it. Good ending.
I want to know more about the conspiracy part of the government and how that plays into Nana's. I want to know more about Nana's backstory as far as her training with this organization. And I want to know what their goals are, what their end like goal is. So I would totally watch more.
So I'm, like I said, I don't want to see a second season, but that's not, I don't mean that as a diss. I mean that as in, this was so good that I don't think you can keep this up. I think the concept starts to get watered down and you lose a bit of the hook. I do want to know the answers though, and we'll probably look them up at some point. I just, to be honest, I want to know what's the truth about this island. But I kind of like where I was with Promised Neverland. Like, Promised Neverland is one of my favorite anime we've watched in a while. I'm not really excited for season 2. It did exactly what I wanted it to do, and I'm like, anything else, I don't know how you keep up with that. It just seems like you're diluting it, and it will fade.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so when I say I'm not going to watch season 2, that is, if I heard like, oh no, it's just as good as season 1, then I would definitely. But I'd be very hesitant.
That makes sense.
All right, so let's go on to our final reviews. Jason, what did you think?
I came into this because some of the situations are a bit contrived. The overarching environment and like idea of the superhero island felt very contrived is the best word. I wanted to give it a 4, but after reviewing it with you guys, I want to give it a 5. Some of that contrivancy, is that a word?
Contrivance?
Just either ended up getting explained or kind of melted away as far as the storytelling as a whole. And it actually made me want to know more about those things. So I'm super impressed with the way they did this. The dialogue was fantastic. The love-hate relationship I have with the main character is great. So 5 for me.
I absolutely love anime that pull the carpet out from under you. It's one of my favorite things. And this anime is kind of a poster child for that, especially in the first episode. And so I absolutely knew as soon as that happened, I was going to be in for a roller coaster ride, and I would probably love the whole thing. There were little moments that frustrated me, but it had nothing to do with the anime. It had to do with the fact that this horrible little protagonist, I don't even want to call her protagonist, this horrible little murderer girl was using lines of reasoning and logic that could not be proven, but covered every possible, like, anything she needed. She had alibis and she had
They have mind
these
control.
words. Yeah,
These
I have
invisible
mind
enemies
control.
we don't sure exist.
Exactly. Oh God, that frustrated me so bad. But at the same time, it's not something that I would ever mark the anime down for, because it was a part of that world. They put that into the story, and they used it to benefit and also to hinder, and they tried to find ways to argue against it, and that was really cool. Also, this anime, it has a lot of drama in it, which I kind of didn't expect. It really goes that direction in the second half with the relationship between Nana and Michiro. And ordinarily, I'm not a huge fan of drama, but I think it's because I find it difficult to suspend my disbelief when drama doesn't have sufficient cost. But the drama that was generated here had such a high cost that it hit all of the marks for me, and I absolutely loved it. And I'm also a sucker for what is another more cynical perspective on something that's widely accepted. I think it's really fun to see what that is and explore the ideas of, okay, we've seen what the cookie cutter, everything is wonderful now, and these characters are only going to be seen as their potential saving count, right? Let's see what happens if they're viewed from the lens of the potential kill count instead, and only that. Let's completely ignore any benefit to society that they may bring to the table, and let's explore how society would evolve around that, and maybe just put you in a little pocket. So just fantastic. This was really cool. Great experience, and I would love to see more, especially if they can keep it up. So 5 out of 5 for me.
I really do think, for me, again, the concept is the king here, and the concept shines so brightly, so well, that while I don't even think this is it might not even be a great anime, it doesn't matter. I had so much fun watching it that I don't really care if the characters are deep or stuff. Give me such a cool concept that I haven't seen something that's Death Note-esque in a while, where it's, hey, this isn't a power battle. This isn't about coolest. This is chess on a life and death level in an anime form, and I'm totally into it, and was like I said, I think the characters are a little bit normal, and actual story is pretty standard, so it's only going to get a 4 from me, but it's a 4 I had a blast watching and would recommend to anyone who's into anime. And I did totally manipulate you guys into not knowing the twist.
No, I'm so glad I walked in that first episode blind.
Agree.
Even the art style lends itself to a bubbly teen drama.
Yep.
When I saw the main character with his green hair and like having no power, I'm like, so you're just gonna tell me your diet, My Hero Academia?
Yes.
Proud of you. That's a good trick. That worked quite well. All right. Our next anime is, I didn't write it down. It's the
Sherlock and Moriarty, isn't that what it was?
Moriarty the Patriot.
Oh, right.
I knew that.
Which I actually don't know anything about plot wise. I know it features Moriarty, and if you know that name, he's the enemy of Sherlock. I don't even know if Sherlock's in it.
Yeah, Sherlock and Watson are both in it. It's a near replica of.
Well, Moriarty's the Patriot or the protagonist, right?
I don't know enough about it. I just know that he's this guy that lives in a society of wealth and status is what makes the person, and he wants to basically overthrow that. So, and Sherlock and Watson are here to make sure that status quo is kept. I'm not sure. I'm excited to watch it.
I am too. I obviously I I think we're all a bit of Sherlock fans in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be cool to see that take into anime form. And I'm interested in the fact that it's called Moriarty and not Sherlock. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I also don't know much about it, so we'll see what it is. And it's 11 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. With that done, if you have any comments on the anime we just watched, Talentless Nana, or any anime we've watched in the past, feel free to reach out to us on social media. On our Twitter is @Baka Podcast. No. Our email,
The Anime Baka Club.
the Anime Baka Club @gmail.com. Our Twitter is @Baka Podcast. That's right.
I don't know.
That
You do
feels
this
right.
every week. How is this happening?
I do this. Just gonna open up Twitter right now and double check this. Or
We are professionals.
Baka Podcast. Yep, that's right.
Nice.
I nailed that.
First time.
You can also leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and that will come to us as well. So thank you for listening. We appreciate your comments and look forward to discussions with people who are smarter than us. That's for sure. Let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.